Hello, everyone. David here. Hi. Today is going to be my very first science video for you guys. So, I wanted to explain the very core principle of quantum physics. However, I'm going to do this in a real world, non, you know. Okay, let me start over. What I'm going to teach you is the very basics of quantum physics in like a third grade level of understanding. So, let's get started. So, quantum physics is basically the study, like the learning of very small particles. And particles are basically like these tiny little circles, or you can call them balls. I'm like if that's okay for you to understand. So these little balls, or circles, or spheres of like 3D shape. Basically, they're very, very, very tiny things. You cannot see without using a microscope first. However, these little circular like creatures, if that's okay for you to call them, these things go like this. So basically, quantum physics is the study of these little things called particles, and these particles they consist of a certain group, and these certain groups are quarks, which is spelled QUARKS. So the first of these little particles are called quarks, and quarks are the smallest things in the universe. So now that we got that out of the way, quarks are known to eventually grow, once they collide, into things called molecules. And molecules sometimes look like this. So molecules sometimes they have like a little like a rod shape, and they have a little like balls or little particles like a combined to the rod, which is basically the functional building blocks of everything else in the universe. So, yeah. So quarks, they become what we call molecules. And molecules is spelled MOLEQULUES. That is the original way to spell it. So you can think of quarks as tiny little planets revolving around each other at a microscopic level, which means very, very small. And molecules are basically the quarks that come together and they form, molecules. And after molecules form, the molecules collide in order to make a bigger type of quark that we now call the atom, which is basically the thing that is the building block of everything else in the universe. So this thing is spelled ATOM. The atom. So first off, we have quarks, right? Quarks are the very small, tiny little planet-like things that grow into molecules. And then the molecules, they grow into becoming atoms. So, quarks are small little balls in the universe. They grow into becoming something called molecules, which are quarks that are stuck together. And then those things, they become atoms, which atoms are the biggest things that have other materials flying around them in this order here. That I'm going to do my pen here. So they circle around on the other ones like this. And then that grows into the information that we call DNA, which is basically just the acid, which is ACID, which is basically just like the building blocks of everything else. And by DNA, I mean the little structure that looks kind of like, that kind of has a little like a spiral shape, like down like this. It's like a spiral shape. It goes down like this, and then it goes outward like this. And basically, a DNA, come in many different forms. However, the DNA that comes from the atom, that DNA eventually goes into life as we know it. Like, for example, like my DNA goes into the little bacteria that we see on like under the microscopes, which bacteria come in many different forms. Like some bacteria are very basic, like a rod-shaped creatures like this. Others of the bacteria group, they have little things called flagellas, which are basically like little hairs that move around so that they can help them move around the world. And some microbes of the bacteria kind, they have little things inside, which are basically the systems of how they function. Kind of like the world's, like a first animal, but they're very, very small, and you can't see them without like a giant little microscope here. And after microbes, we got the plants as well. Like plants, they come into existence after microbes. And then it goes on to oh, hold on guys, hold on. It goes on to animals. It goes on to animals. Animals have paws and they move around. So it goes from microbes to plants and then to animals. And then it goes into insects, which are very small creatures, kind of like black ants, you see in the dirt sometimes in the forest. And then that goes into humans, which are like us. Arms, hands, and legs. And then that can go into any other direction at once. Because DNA spelled like this. So the DNA is basically the building blocks of everything in the universe. So DNA can be the building blocks of, rocks out in nature, like granite or little stones or pebbles. And my DNA can make up anything. Because DNA is basically the atoms of the universe. And everything in the universe has to come from something. So basically atoms or molecules are basically the matter, the physics of everything around us. So what you see with your eyes is basically the object that exists, like you. For example, DNA, or we can call DNA like other things that are not living. We could take DNA and then we can call it matter. Which matter can come in many different forms. Matter can come from living or non-living things. Non-living things can consist of the matter of rocks, which the DNA of rocks is not alive, however the molecules form to make it like a crystallized structure, which is basically like what rocks basically are. And the other matter, which is like DNA, is basically like living things, unlike eggs that form into chickens, once they hatch. So guys, basically, quantum physics is basically just the study of things that make up other things. For example, a quark can make up an atom, and the atom makes up the DNA, and then the DNA makes up the bacteria, and then the bacteria make up the human, like us. I'll see you guys next time, and I hope you guys learned something new today. So, remember y'all, quantum physics is the study of very small particles that make up everything else that you see in the world around you. I'll see you guys next time, and have a good day.